Hello Martin, welcome to episode 78 of Eliminating Rounds. We are sharper, clearer and more focused than ever. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes,
Good.
Sharper but less shaved.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
You have the ability of, when your hair and your beard grow, it all seems to grow at the same distance. And you've got the same, mine doesn't do that.
I end up looking like one of those little fluffy things you put on a microphone to stop the other sounds from getting into it.
Some might say that's your best work in front of a microphone, but
so we're all looking forward to going to Blackpool for the tournament next week.
We are. Your side is getting more complex as it speaks, but we're hoping that you're still able to make it.
There's
a minor chance that you may not, but you should be good.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. We've lined up some desert island scenario interviews as well. So
yes.
do you want to tell people about this a little bit?
Yeah, so I think this is going to be brilliant. So we've actually got 9 people who've said that they're up for being interviewed, and we of course can put them onto a global stage, can't we? So the world can watch them. And they are going to. So it's based on this Radio 4 program in the UK, a BBC program, and basically we have a little bit of a chat about their favourite scenarios. They're going to tell us what their 3 favourite scenarios are, and for each one they've got to choose an opponent. And they can choose an opponent who they've played regularly, perhaps one of their regular opponents. They can choose somebody, they can play Napoleon if they want. It's up to them. So,
right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Good fun. I'm looking forward to it. We have invested in some sound technology as well, so we're going to get some.
Absolutely.
We're going to get some sound.
Can we flash that, Dave? Because that's an impressive.
This thing we've got the Zoom 6 H6 all set up. We've got the Rode wireless microphone set up. We are good to go. We're going to look professional, Martin. That's
and that's saying something, isn't it?
It is saying something. It's absolutely. We have a good show today. So we played a scenario that I had a great time with. I don't know if you had as a great time with it, but Acts of Defiance, great scenario. I had not played it before. You'd not played it before either.
I've not played it before. No.
Which is crazy because I think it's a classic of classic status, isn't it? I think it was first out in the Dagger Route Report, and then it was picked up by Critical Hit, and then later on in one of the annuals, I think Annual 95, and then again in Beyond Valor, third edition, and really worthy of all those reprints, isn't it? It's been
absolutely.
It's great. So I don't know why it's taken us so long to play this one.
Do you know? I think I thought I had. Because it's such a well-known scenario, and you hear people talk about it, and you come across it if you're flicking through a file, files, aren't you, of scenarios. So I think in my head I thought we had. So when we looked at it more carefully, it was a nice surprise to see.
Yeah,
we got that
nice
surprise to go. Yeah.
So we have Rob that's going to talk as well about the scenario with the tanks, focus on the tanks. Yeah. We also have Toby's tips around some wire as well, and we should mention we did a Patreon fireside chat, didn't we? Just you and I. For the patrons, we had a meandering chat for half an hour in front of a real fire, threw some counter clippings on it and all that kind of stuff. So if you are a Patreon or if you are thinking about becoming a Patreon, you can look at that on the Patreon site. You can see us having a chat about all sorts of bits and pieces. And that was after our game last week. We played To Ashes, and we'll talk about that in a future episode. But that was a scenario, wasn't it?
It was a scenario, yeah.
It was a scenario.
I think that actually defeated both of us, that one.
It was.
So we both lost, really.
One of us lost more than the other, but yeah, it was. But it was to be fair, it was very, very close, wasn't it? It couldn't have been. Couldn't have been a closer game. So that was great. But Acts of Defiance, I think, is the first thing to talk about. There is it is an ahistorical scenario, so it did not happen. It could have happened, obviously, in terms of the Germans fought the Russians in this sort of time frame. So it wasn't as ahistorical as Germans fighting the Japanese or something. But it does raise the question about ahistorical scenarios and what your feeling is and what the community's feelings are. So I guess Martin, views on ahistorical scenarios.
Yeah, so I think my views have changed. I think when I first came into the hobby, I quite liked the idea that there was sort of a historical sort of basis to the games. And and I quite enjoy a few things that do try hard to be historical, like kind of the Pegasus Bridge, the glider landings, and things like that. I quite enjoy the fact, and I like the maps, the fact that they're quite carefully done, Dinont and all those sort of maps. But when I've tried to design scenarios, I've come to realise that trying to become too close to any kind of historical thing often doesn't make for a very good game. And I think that so what I think I've come to think is that you have to have you have to be able to make people believe it. So there's a famous expression in the arts, the willing suspension of disbelief. And that means that you have to sort of be able to pretend that you think it could be real, even though it isn't. And I think it's almost silly to say that ASL could like model a real battle, because especially on geo boards, I mean, there's no pretense really, is there? It's not the same terrain and stuff like that. We don't even know in enough detail what forces were kind of available, perhaps. So I think it's enough to be sort of told a story that's historical, and that this is like the scenario designers like take on it, their interpretation of it. What doesn't work in Acts of Defiance is fine, because Acts of Defiance seems perfectly plausible. You've got like a city, you've got some fighting going on, there's some hassle for the bridges and all that. All that's plausible. But if you had, I don't know, Japanese tanks there or something like that on the German side, it's suddenly not plausible, is it? And I think I would be unable to suspend my disbelief. I wouldn't be able to. It's a bit like when you're watching a war film and, I don't know, someone says lol, like a World War II war film, and someone says lol, that would wreck the film, wouldn't it? You couldn't suspend your disbelief anymore, but you knew all along it wasn't real.
Right.
But something like that will wreck the illusion. And I think that's how I feel now. Now, Acts of Defiance is a very good example of a great scenario, very, very enjoyable. And at no point was my illusion shattered that this wasn't some sort of portrayal of a real battle. But I know it's not. But I know all of them aren't really, I suppose.
Right.
That's how I feel now, I think.
So I'm much more extreme than you. So I feel like ASL is I love that there are historical battles, and that's great. And I think it's a great thing to be able to talk about when other people ask you about the game. You can say, well, we played a kind of a reenactment almost, or a simulation of a particular battle. But I feel like the design space is narrowed significantly by the inability to play the Germans against the Japanese, or to see Japanese tanks, in a particular instance. And I get it. I get that Japanese tanks didn't fight Germany in Berlin. Of course, why would they? But at the same time, it's a game system that enables this. And I know we can DYO, and we can, there's all the rules for that kind of stuff. But the idea is that what we miss out on a lot of is the gamification of the game. So we're simulating, and I get it's a simulation. But at the same time, there are a whole heap of interesting situations that could happen that we could play around, that are the gamification of that scenario. So for example, we could be having, I don't know, alternating tanks coming on the same side, one after the other as a scenario. Of course, it would never have happened in a real battle, but in a way, that's not the point. We're playing a game, and the game has the ability to be able to do all sorts of cool stuff that we don't really get a chance to do, because most of the time, 98% of the scenarios are really trying to be very, very historical, and they are trying to, they pride themselves on the historical accuracy.
Yeah.
And no historical conversation is going to happen without people talking about Hill 621 being a great scenario, and we know it's ahistorical. And I think it goes back to what you said about the suspension of disbelief. But at the same time, we're missing out on a whole lot of other adventures we could have in ASL that we don't have, because we are limiting ourselves. Now, with that said, it doesn't seem like we've run dry of the kind of the pot of potential scenarios that could be done.
Sure.
But they are all quite similar, aren't they? At a certain point, I know that we have different kind of flavors for a scenario, and there's a special sauce to most scenarios to give it a little twist. But we don't. It's like kind of the same. It's a roast dinner with different proportions or different oh, this time I've got a nut roast, now I've got a, but it's never a crazy popping candy Christmas dinner kind of thing, you know. So yeah,
It's interesting, isn't it? Obviously, the ASL community is a broad church, isn't it? There's people who really just like modelling, and that's what they see in it. And there's people who just like collecting, and there's people who really come to it from a historical perspective. They're interested in the history, and there's people which is probably more me, and you're more interested in games, aren't you? I mean, I think you once said to me that you wouldn't really mind that much if they were like little alien cars firing at each other or something like that. It's so I think that's just a very big difference between us, as you know, we've drawn to ASL for different reasons.
Yeah.
And that's okay, you know. So it's certainly okay that they're ahistorical scenarios. There's plenty of historical ones, isn't there, for
Absolutely,
people who are interested in it.
Exactly. And I think, you know, I think before I've talked about the fact that, you know, it's, to me sometimes it is just the yellows versus the browns, or it's the yellows versus the, you know, whatever it might be, is in terms of just the colour of the counters. And to be fair, sometimes when we're playing Axis Miners or something, you don't really know in the middle of the scenario if it's Dutch or Polish, or if it's, you know, Belgian or whatever. It could
all those
be
countries just mold
into
together,
light green, don't
they?
they? They mold into a very pleasant shade of light green. And so there's that. I don't have a problem with it. I obviously, you know, I think that's my take on it. So I would never be put off by an ahistorical scenario. I was very surprised, and obviously Rob's very knowledgeable on this one, to tell us about how not how ahistorical it was, because it's relatively, like you say, grounded in the basis of reality, but to the point where arguably these tanks never fired a shot in the war. It's quite surprising to see that people have enjoyed this scenario so much and haven't had a problem with it. And I wonder whether we take it a little bit too seriously, the historical aspect of it. So so for example, would you buy a pack, you know, a historical pack number 3, you know, none of these scenarios ever happened or could have happened, would you buy that?
You know, I probably wouldn't, because I think that it's not just that I'm interested in history, but it's because I'm interested in the story that takes place, and the story takes place with a backdrop, which is World War II, whether it's in France or the jungle or wherever, and in order to be able to enjoy that, I've got to be able to suspend my disbelief, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. This is much more like a novel to me, or a short story, perhaps.
Right.
And
But a short story that's non-fiction.
Well, no, it's absolutely fiction. But when you read fiction, you become engaged and interested in it, because although you intellectually know it's not true, you're able to engage in it as though it is true. That's the idea of the willing suspension of disbelief.
It's, but like, for example, would you enjoyed Lord of the Rings presumably, and does that have a suspension of disbelief? Is that?
But the thing is, if you were reading Lord of the Rings, and with all that, if you know, a world is like created, isn't it, for you? If suddenly something happened in that world which was very out of place, that would change how you perhaps felt about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how I think, how I feel, and that's why I think I'm perfectly happy playing Axis Defiance, and I enjoy it, because there's no hint to. I mean, I didn't know those tanks had never fired a shot in World War II. Somebody who's more knowledgeable would, but for somebody like me, it makes no difference. I'm quite happy. Yeah.
Interesting. So I kind of draw the line at teleporting troops and laser weapons, for example, on the battlefield, but I would like to see more scope for craziness in a scenario, because like I say, it's the game. So that's kind of my take on it. Didn't stop the fact that this was a great scenario, did it? I mean, that was
absolutely not.
That was the key thing. So one of my favourite scenarios that we've played, and to be fair, everything went my way in this scenario. We're gonna go through it. We're gonna show Rob's thing first, and I always wonder if that's why I like the scenario more, because nothing really went wrong for me, without giving away the ending. But we'll see. So let's play Rob's excellent analysis of the tanks and the bits and pieces, and then we'll get into the game.
Welcome everybody. We're reviewing today ASL 135 Axis of Defiance for David Martin's eliminating rounds. So to commence, this is the axe of Defiance, and this is the scenario, all to do with a place called Breslau. This is some information about Breslau. It's interesting they call it Festung Breslau, so maybe we'll get a historical module one day, and just some more recent information in that webpage below. This is what the ASL game looks like. As you can see, the Russians are in a center pocket, attacked mainly from the Germans from the north, and there's some Germans on the board, engineers, that will try and take out bridges or attack the Russians from the south to block reinforcements. This is all about two parts, basically. For the Russians, we have two tanks to review. How did we get to the last medium tank of World War II, and how did we get to the really ultra-heavy tank destroyer ISU-122? And for the Germans, how did we get to the Grizzly Bear? And, you know, the 150mm gun particularly actually wasn't the one that they used for the infantry battalions, but one made by Skoda. How did we get to the Jag Panzer, or Guderian's Duck? It's called Guderian's Duck because Guderian thought it was pointless making it. He'd rather have the money and the resources spent on more Panzer IVs, so that's why it was given that nickname. And then the first robotic engineering vehicle, or the drone of the times. And when we do this, remember, this is not really a tank-friendly game, from rubble, sewers, and water obstacles, etc. So when we could think about the Russian medium tanks, when we were heading into World War II, we had the BT series coming out of the Spanish Civil War, and then the Germans and Barbarossa faced the T-34, the M40, and then the M41, and then the M43, all carrying a 76L gun. We'll talk about it a bit more. But by that time of the war, absolutely, the supreme T-34-85 with a good gun and all the advantages of the T-34 was around. And what was around, and I'll talk about again in a second, was this tank called the T-44. So this T-34, with the first diesel tank engine ever invented and one of the top 5 engines of World War II, with sloped thick armour, wonderful road wheels, wonderful speed. The 1940 was a bit tight in the old cupola, but you know, the turret was a squeezy affair, but still a massive advance in tanks. It led to this T-34-85, which is a superb tank with the same characteristics as well as a superb gun. And then we come up with this thing that was the last built medium tank of World War II. But did this actually ever fire a shot? So, as you know, in military history in the last decade and 1 to 2 decades, we've actually had more and more data come out from more and more analysis, and a lot of things that were suggested when Axe of Defiance was initially invented by Peter Mudge. It was done in a third-party publisher, picked up by Critical Hit and put in their first magazine. Peter Mudge actually wrote a great article in that Critical Hit first magazine too about a road trip with his family, ASL style. So I love Peter Mudge from his readings. But, you know, recent articles would suggest that though it might have existed on the order of battle, it may actually have never fired a shot. And definitely the T-34-85 really was something that was prolific, was really liked by the tank crews, and there was a reluctance to even hop inside a T-44, let alone take it into combat. And its engine was an experimental engine for the time, and did lead to the T-55 in the future, but we have to think about whether it actually fired a shot. So maybe this is an unhistorical game. Now, as you know, the classic games like Hill 621 were very unhistorical games and go back to the early days of ASL. And whether we want to play accurate history of historical games is much of a debate, and Martin and Dave might take this up. For those who want to read more, read the Games Squad forums, they're listed below. So here's the T-34s from top to bottom. The M40 is on the top. The M43, a T-34 M43 is that one next down, and then the T-34-85 is sitting there with the guy trying to climb out with his hands in his pocket, very dangerous. And then the T-44 down the bottom. Just flashing in on the T-34-85 because it's absolutely a very excellent tank that went into Korea and even beyond. So here's our friend, the T-44. We're looking at it from very thick frontal armour, nice 85L gun, But as I said, the engine was a new engine for a vehicle of such weight. And importantly, this is what the game terms, from left to right, we've got the BT series and how we kept relatively good speed, but pretty unreliable engines. And then we went to the T34-85, which was probably the premier version of the T34s. The M43 is that one that was a cancelled project where they started to up armour, losing a bit of speed. And then as you can see, the T44 is listed there in game terms. So the key vehicle notes is that of course, the reliability. So the concept of the stall, literally taking a spanner to the engine to get it started. And the other one is that of the bow machine gun, having a +1. What about the heavy tank? Well, when the Germans rolled into Russia and Barbarossa, they came across the KV-2, the big turret, the heavy tank. So the Russians were in love with these concepts of putting big 150mm guns on tanks. And, the KV-2 is something, and I reference it later, a previous video, living around 65, where I go through the heavy tanks. But when we think about the tank destroyers or assault guns, literally they started with a light tank chassis, moved on to using T-34 chassis, and then moved on to KV-1S chassis. But when they got to the ISU series, basically because they'd run out of KV-1S chassis, because they were no longer using those tanks, they moved on to the Joseph Stalin chassis of their heavy tank, and that's what then they mounted the 122 and 152 on that. So that's your different SU tank destroyer series. There's the 122 howitzer on the T-34. And this is the heavy tank Joseph Stalin hull with the big gun, the 152 or the 122, which is one game piece from the game. Here's an equivalent SU 122 using the 234 chassis. It was top heavy and used to fall over. And again, the SU 152, which actually was taken into the Battle of Kursk with massive losses. So in December of 43, they stopped making it for the ISU 152 because, again, they couldn't make the KV-1S chassis, which is the chassis it's on, but they had massive losses of these in Kursk. And this is the JSU 152. It's actually even had recent usage, little known fact, that is in the Chernobyl radiation accident. They actually used these big, massive tanks that were still in the Russian order of battle, and they drove them into Chernobyl because they're so thick, they're radiation proof, and they demolished the nuclear facility with these massive tanks. You can watch this Mark Felton YouTube to find out that information. Anyway, across from the top, you see the T-34 chassis and the SU-85. There's an SU-85 and the howitzer SU-122. And then if you think about the KV-1 series up the top, I do my heavy tanks in this previous eliminating round, 65, but that's the Joseph Stalin next to a KV-1, the original KV-1. And then, as you can see, the Joseph Stalin next to the ISU series, they're using the same tank chassis. So this is in games terms, talking about not only the SU-152, but also the ISU 122 and 152 in game terms. Nothing particular about vehicle note G. So this is what the Russians had for this game, the T-44 and the ISU 122, big tanks. Well, the Germans, we have to build up to the assault guns, and the idea is that when the infantry battalions even attacked in Poland, these 150mm artillery pieces were towed by horses. They came to the conclusion they needed something to penetrate bunkers, and they even used that heat round Stalingrad had on a 150mm. Most people know about it on the 37L AT gun, but they didn't realize it was actually on an infantry gun too, as a bunker buster. And then they came to Stalingrad, and when Stalingrad, even though they had 75 stars and 75 Ls, and there was 100mm as well, 105, they really found that they had to try and get this Sturmpanzer 3 going. And the Sturmpanzer 3 was really the stud with a 150 on it, but it was a bit under armoured. So this is where the Grizzly Bear or the Sturmpanzer 4 came from. Obviously, other chassis were used. I'm not going to go through them today for time, that were turned into assault guns and tank destroyers mentioned there. So this is our Stug, which was an inherent part of the infantry units and eventually became inherent part of the panzer divisions, particularly when they hit Stalingrad. The one down the bottom right, Stu 42, is the one with the 105mm on it. But it wasn't strong enough, and neither was the 75Ls, to be able to penetrate. So they came up with these alternatives. So the first alternative was use an alternative chassis. So the Sturm Tiger, of course, was the largest of the versions, with the Churchill carrying a spigot mortar. This carried a mortar. The Elephant was putting an 88, borrowing Italian vehicles, or looking at the Hetzers. All these things we'll talk about in another video, but they used other chassis. But for the 150, they started with an infantry gun. They tried to put it on a Panzer III chassis, but open-topped. They tried to put it on a Panzer II chassis, open-topped. And then they tried to put it on the Stug. But as you can see, it was just under-armoured for what it had to do, which is drive up to the bunker and fire. So they came up with the Grizzly Bear, or the Brumba. So looking left to right is just the different Stugs. And then if you think about it, if you're going to put 150mm on it, you try and that's the 150mm mounted on the different chassis from left to right there, and the Sturm Tiger in the center. But they came up with the Brumba, which the 150mm there is actually made by Skoda. So it's not the same gun. It was Skoda. You got to remember that both the Stug factory and the 150mm factory were bombed to bits at a particular time in the war. So they had to shift a lot of production, which led to things like the Hetzer and led to the Brumba. They had to shift a lot of things to Czechoslovakia for production. So here it is in game terms. What does the Grizzly Bear look like? The vehicle notice is just Schutzen, going across the top, the different Stugs available, and then the 150mm being mounted. What about the concept of the tank destroyer? Because we have not just a assault gun, we have a tank destroyer. From early days, even the Battle of France, really what they learned in Poland is towing anti-tank guns doesn't work very well. So, they put a 47mm on a Panzer I chassis, a 37mm on a French chassis, a 50mm on a Panzer II chassis, and then came the Martyrs. And the Martyrs were a godsend in the desert because these 75mm guns used to just pop the British tanks off at far range. So the Martyr led to the concept of a clash, of the idea of taking the Stug, which is close-top 75mm gun, tank destroyer, and putting on it a better gun and more armour, so it's a more effective tank destroyer. So in comes the Jag Panzers. There's early versions, there's late versions, there's another early version which I built, and another late version. I'm not sure what version this is, and I'm actually probably going to purchase it because I can't figure out which version it is. But from left to right, you've got the Stug with the 105, and then keeping the Stug 4 chassis, they went on to develop the early Jag Panzer and then the one in the game. So this is our friend, the Guderian Stug, the one in the game. So across the top there is the development of the tank destroyers and what we saw with the tank destroyers. And these are the notes on our tank destroyer for the game. So this is what the Germans had. Don't forget, we have our first robotic droid, and basically this is what it looks like. And basically they drove these satchel charges in little robotic drones. Lots of rules to read about the Goliath. So before you do this, read your rules. And this is what the matchup looks like. Inherently, or basically, we're right down the right-hand side here. The 122L, as you can see, is a 25 for the Russians, and the 85L is this 17, so good numbers to kill. The 150 on the Brumba is a heat round. There is a heat round attached to it, and the 75 double L is the best in the game, which is the 23 for the Germans. Obviously, the 25 is even better. So when thinking about the matchup, remember it's Russians buried in a town with an overstrength company reinforced by heavy tanks. The Germans have two understrength companies and engineers trying to dig them out. The terrain is very messy, lots and lots of rubble. And really you're looking at both Germans and Russians having about somewhere around, the Russians have a worse chance, 50% chance. Also, the Russian tanks have a bad habit of stalling and running out of ammo. Both the Jagdpanzers and the T-44, though I wouldn't agree with this, is a small target, and the ICU is a large target. If I was to comment on the tactics, I would find it difficult. This has been played not only in many tourneys, but by no less than the Oktoberfest Growfazes at least 2 or 3 times that I can count. So it's an amazing game. People have played it 100 times. So, you know, the Jagdpanzer role is to challenge the Ruski tanks. The Grizzly Bear should avoid the enemy tanks and punch holes and things like the Russian 50 cal gun. The Goliath, you can choose, attack the bridges or attack them, and don't forget to use the sewers. The Russians have the unmatched tanks, you know, they have the better tanks. And they really should give ground slowly because they have to be completely dug out of the area. So in conclusion, this is a unique opportunity for these vehicles. And you can see late war Russian tank development. And really, it's a desperate German attack with, at best, a 2-to-1 advantage, lots of toys to learn. So thank you very much for what we're experiencing. And hopefully we'll get to do another video in the future.
So some people have played this scenario 100 times. That's
only 50 times each way, isn't it? So it's just like 2 scenarios, isn't it? For every scenario is like 2 scenarios.
It's incredible, though, really.
Yeah.
You know, I mean...
I can't imagine wanting to play it 100 times.
No.
But of course, in the old squad leader days, and there were 12 scenarios.
Right.
I do remember we would play scenarios several times and sort of, at our level, perfect it, you know, and then we kind of like sort of move on,
Yeah, wow, it's impressive. Let's look at the board.
Yeah.
So let's have a quick look at the setup that I went with. So I'm the Germans defending. Germans attacking. Sorry. And we can see that it's basically lining up these squads in effectively 3 different jobs. So my left hand flank, or my right, I guess if I was looking at it from the German point of view, but from the left hand side of this board. We've got a platoon and an extra squad kind of looking to secure the left flank. We've got some guys that can push in the middle. We've got some guys on the right, and more interestingly is the small kind of detachment at the on the kind of bottom right here, and these are the Goliath kind of guys, and their job really you have 2 options here. Really, you can kind of try and either blow up both bridges, which is probably next to impossible, I think, for one of the Goliaths, but you can definitely get both of these onto this bridge here, and you can blow them both up. And in theory, the first explosion will take the second Goliath out, and that will have a chance to blow up the bridge. So you might get 2 chances to blow up the bridge.
Yeah.
And it works out about 50-50 in terms of whether that will work. And I think that's the Germans' best chance here. Alternatively, also, you could use these Goliaths to try and run in and blow the tanks up in the centre of the square. That seems a little bit more difficult given the rules for line of sight of keeping these guys in line of sight of the Goliaths and keeping them alive. But it definitely gives you some options. You have a decent set of guys trying to cross these bridges, don't you, Martin? And
yes,
this was the challenge for you, getting these guys into the game. So
that's right. Yeah.
So
obviously the thing about the more bridges you can blow up, the more you channel my reinforcements. Of course, if you were to blow up both, that's it. They'd have very little impact on the game, wouldn't they?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, this is a deep stream that can't really be crossed, and so it's all to play for really there. The objective here is to clear out all of the Russians.
Multi-man counters, isn't it?
Yeah, multi-man counters. Now, there's no restriction on you abandoning your tanks, so I've got to be a little bit careful. You get the last turn, so there's a key thing here that you can absolutely abandon a tank. You know, for example, on one of these corners, jump out, advance, win the game, and that's something I have to be quite mindful of.
Yeah, or even drive into a building. Take the chance, drive into a building, and get out. But I have to get out. Yeah,
and you have OBA as well, don't you? So
yes,
Now I don't remember what OBA you have.
I think it's 120. I've got the thing. I think it's 120.
Yeah, it's pretty good with plentiful ammo.
Yes. Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. And the observer can set up hit.
Right. So, the other thing that the Germans get is this the Hitler Youth, the Panzerschreck,
yes,
toting guys who start in a sewer, And so
And
these
that's
guys,
very difficult for the Russians setting up, trying to deal with that, and except that a Panzer Faust is going to appear potentially anywhere near your tanks.
right, exactly. Now I set this guy up first,
Hmm.
so that's, and so for the benefit of Martin, he's in W9 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see really now what happens. So Martin, did you have a plan? Did you have a?
Yeah. So my plan really was not to be too strong on the my right hand side, but that I was going to try and hold onto sort of like a hex, like U8, until the very end.
Right
And
down, yeah.
central to that is
Yep.
that my observer is here on level 1, and
Well,
because
sorry,
all
yeah,
these.
we're not seeing your circles. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so V7
Right.
is my observer, and because of the stone buildings in front of it have collapsed, it's got pretty good lines of sight. So I'm really expecting a strong attack in that area, and then the OBA is going to protect the guys as they fall back. Also, assuming that you can take out BB3 bridge on the bottom.
Yep.
My reinforcements have got something like a chance of getting into the back of that building, perhaps towards the end of the game.
Right.
So that's the plan. It's all about the OBA.
Yeah, all about the OBA. So we have Gus to start with. That's the that's the first bit. We have no prep fire and straight into the action really with the Germans. So the Goliaths are jumping onto the first bridge. My plan here is to take these guys out. A little bit of confusion. The rules aren't really that clear in terms of whether you can do crazy things like armored assault, but I think we got there in the end. That basically the Goliath operators don't get to move, but can advance. Mustn't fire because it is a little bit.
Wasn't it the Desperation Morale website where we got the cheat sheet that was actually quite useful for this? Or was it from the journal?
No, it was the journal. Yeah, the journal had the article about them.
There is a cheat sheet though on Desperation Morale for these, but it was the journal that explained that we used.
So my guys are trying to roll to come out of the sewer and are actually lost, so they can't emerge here. And there's a chance that you get to move them next turn as well. There's the weird thing with the thing. So okay, so we're starting to advance onto the board. Fairly timid, I think I would say for me.
Yeah, I think that's true.
We have the big 150 millimeter Stug coming on here. Nearly went into the line of sight of the tank. I didn't see. This is one of those tricky scenarios where if you're, for example, up here looking at this tank and I'm moving him down, I've got the map scrolled right the way up to the top, and I just want to think about him getting into Z9 because it looks like quite a good position, or Y9. And then suddenly scroll down and I see a big 85 millimeter gun staring at me. So there's a bit of advancing fire, and we managed to break one squad, push forward, and it does start to look like the Germans have an awful lot, doesn't it?
It did feel like that to me.
Yeah,
and I think that sort of gentle start is actually exactly the right thing to do.
Right.
Now you're intact.
You drew a red card straight away off on your OBA.
Yeah.
So that was
that never happens, does it?
So we'll look. Oh, and of course the bridge gets blown up as well. So we managed to roll low enough for the bridge. So it's definitely all gone the Germans' way to start with. All right, we're gonna see a little bit of prep fire in here. Yeah, this is some great spots for your tanks, by the way. There is some tricky roads to cross, certainly on the right hand side of the map. And so you're pretty.
Well, that's exactly the plan. Is to section off that left hand sort of like portion,
right,
between the tanks and the OBA.
Yep. So at this point, I think you're doing fine in terms of the hold. I think the one thing I would say is that there wasn't a lot of fire coming at me when I was moving through, and so it lets me take the first foothold on the right hand side. The left hand side is definitely looking quite strong. And I'm outmatched there. So
yes, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, but I'm not trying to defend that first building, the AA3 building, really.
Now I think you go into motion here when our tanks have seen each other here down the road, and you go to motion, and you're not certain about this move. I think you were quite kind of concerned. The matchup by the tanks, obviously, as Rob's gone through, is quite interesting. But with your 16 armor on the front, it's not. It's no sure thing.
Yeah.
Of getting anything. Obviously, the hold down will help me out a lot there. Infantry smoke going in.
But I want those tanks in my fort. So what I should have done is turned it so it was heading towards W6, and I pointed it in the wrong direction. Brilliantly.
Right.
Yeah. But that was my idea. So I didn't want to exchange. I wanted to guarantee that tank getting into the complex. Yeah.
Right. I absolutely messed this up coming across. So I'm trying to come across the road here on the left hand side.
Yeah.
I lose a squad to a double one, and have to take quite a lot of residual firepower here. But do manage to get a concealed guy in the road. But yeah, the cost of 3 broken squads and a lost squad.
Yeah, I think I lost radio contact in my turn.
You did, yeah. You rolled a high number for your radio contact. So yeah, it's no radio contact again. I get the 9-2 across the road.
Yeah, that's significant.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm going to bring the 130 down onto him. That's the plan.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. So it's basically now what's happened here is we've kind of held off the bridge crossing. The other thing we should mention about this game, which we haven't talked about yet, we played this game with the IIFT in the background. So
that's right.
For each roll that we made, we checked to see whether or not it would have a different effect, because we were rolling on a 5 rather than a 4 column. And if it did have an effect, whether the outcome was different. And we'll talk about the results at the end of it.
Yeah, okay.
But it was quite interesting. So the sewer guys come up.
Yeah.
I think they are kind of available to advance out next turn.
Yeah.
So they are looking okay. And yeah, I mean, so the left hand side looks like it will kind of hold out for you, doesn't it? And especially even though you haven't got the OBA, I mean, that would have been completely devastating with the OBA coming down this time. So a whole bunch of routing. I jump into the town. We're getting you encircled in here, and some close combat as well. I get lucky on the close combat. So I was just looking there. Was that a half squad? I can't remember there. But okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it hand to hand in this as well? I couldn't remember. Is it hand to hand?
It is hand to hand.
That's what it's doing. That's what's doing it. Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's so lethal when you see the hands. Yeah.
Right. So we lose some tanks in the middle.
Yeah.
You lose 2 tanks, and you bring these
one
tanks
of them
around.
to your Panzerschreck guy.
That's right. Yeah, the Hitler Youth guys.
But I think he breaks in his own.
That's right.
From his own backblast. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but 2 tanks down, and of course creating a bit of smoke, and a bit of cover.
This is a little bit risky for you here, bringing the tank all the way around adjacent. Obviously, good job of bringing the guys under the M, but at the same point, it's risky.
Yeah.
I think have you pulled your second red at this point?
I think so. Yes, that's why the leaders become
right.
You might as well become involved. Go and try and rally somebody.
Yeah. So no OBA for you at all. Now at this point, I think if you'd had OBA down on these broken guys, those 3 squads aren't really going to come back.
Yeah.
And then you've got the great target as well in the right hand side. Meanwhile, we got the bridge crossing is underway. You managed to
actually,
break.
that's a great place to break in X2 because you can route into the rubble.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
There's worse places to break.
Right, exactly that. So yeah, I mean, basically at this point, I think it's definitely in the balance. The tank battles obviously has gone my way to start with.
Yeah. It doesn't go well trying to deal with that 9-2. I think that was the biggest problem I had.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've said this before, but like, you know, as the more we play, and so we've 500 scenarios later, we're still in awe of 9-2 leaders in terms of their effect in the area of the battlefield at that point.
Yeah.
So we have a melee going on against the concealed guys here. You roll poorly. I roll well, which is very unfortunate, and that's a big one because you were concealed here in hand-to-hand combat, and if you can secure this area on the right-hand side, you almost will win the game with those one guys there, because again, trying to cross this street is difficult. I do have quite a lot of guys, but it's just taking away more of my guys from the battle, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the tank battles never really took off, did they? The tanks kind of avoided each other for the most part.
Well, you blew all mine up.
You got a couple left.
Yeah. Well, I've got the new ones coming on, and I've got the one that went round to DM your brokers. Yeah.
Right. So turn 3.
I malfunction my main armament when I take that shot.
Yeah, this is the crazy one here where I fly around to try and get you in. I mean, you're in motion anyway, so I kind of figure like I have a decent chance. But yeah, you're it's a little bit unfortunate. And that's not the only tank that you're going to lose, I think, as well. You might lose another one. Or did you already lose one from the?
I've already lost all of the start tanks.
Yeah, so there's you're gonna fire a shot for acquisition at some point, and then
that's later on.
Later, he's got a little platform. A lot of broken guys. The 9-2 is now broken. This is kind of unfortunate here. The 150s.
You've got fanatics though. Yeah.
The 150s have kind of definitely done a little bit of work here. Your guys are eliminated. My 9-2 is eliminated. It's a route here. But
of course, here you come. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the poor 9-1.
Yeah.
Wounded. Only guy in double 6 on the close combat. Now, this was this against one of my tanks? I can't remember what one of these was. I think, did you have a? Oh, maybe that was last week's game actually. The small arms.
I don't think that was in this instance.
No.
So I've got my heavy machine gun.
Yeah, the heavy machine gun down here in Y5 is brutal for this road. It really does cut the battlefield into two. It's a great spot.
And Plan A was to get it across the canal, but actually Plan B was a very good use of it, because you got a lot of force on the right hand side.
Yep.
And I have dealt with the 9-2. Albeit you've still got lots of other infantry.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I don't know, you haven't got that much over there. And they're mostly broken,
Yeah, and these 628s can absolutely get into the kind of the T9 area, around there, and that's and I think it's one of these scenarios where you are, I think, not disheartened, but you're kind of put off by the fact that it looks like you're being annihilated. But it's that whole thing about you only need one multi-man counter to win it. So there's you're on low ammo now with one of the tanks.
That was the first shot it took. Gave it low ammo.
Right.
But that's a nice place for one of the tanks.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. It's got some great spots.
I think this might be when I go for a.
Yeah. There's a multiple hits.
But because he's on low ammunition, the 12 is an automatic recall.
Yeah. Exactly. Pretty unlucky. And then you've got your mouthed tank up here as well in Y10.
Which at least is still useful. I mean, it's got machine guns, hasn't it? It
has got machine guns.
Yeah. So again, it's helped up that road.
So what could go wrong? You know, this tank is going to go and chase him down again. We'll see. We'll see how that guy gets on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, his life expectancy is low, but the game ends at some point, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
it's while that tank is chasing that tank,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of helping me.
Exactly. I'm more worried that you're going to just jump him out. I thought that maybe you were going to use this tank to kind of run him around somewhere in a building.
Yeah.
Jump out the crew.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what I should have done, probably.
Yeah. You're too much of a gentleman for that kind of behaviour, though. You don't.
I'm just too poor a player to think of it when I need it.
So, yeah, we're trying to kind of flush out all the Russians. It's turn 4.
Yeah, the right hand side now is unfinished, aren't I? Everything's broken. Yeah.
You're not finished, Martin. You're Russian.
I wonder if this close combat will go my way.
This broken half squad, yeah, didn't go.
Oh no! It was okay. Fair enough. It was a broken half squad. He was unlikely to win that.
Yeah. You managed to repair your tank, by the way. This is the crazy.
Yes.
This tank now feels really quite stupid. In front of your 85L.
The Kruger, I don't think his gun's working. Let's follow him.
And manages to shock me.
Yeah.
In no uncertain terms, I was shocked.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah.
So then
and you sneaked up with the Panzerfaust or the Panzerschreck, and he managed to break, didn't he?
That's right. So so we got the guys around the back in theory to try and get a Panzerfaust attempt, and then the sniper. The sniper comes and kills him.
So this tank is having a resurrection. Absolute resurrection.
Yeah, exactly. So I have this one other shot here from this Panzerschreck down in Z2.
Yeah. But I'm running out of infantry in the. I'm still hoping I can get some 628s in there, but it's looking really difficult to see how I'm going to do that.
Yeah, and I get the six to hit and a 4 to kill.
Yes.
Destroy
it out.
But obviously break myself in the end. But it's a trade I'm willing to take.
That's fine, isn't it? Yeah.
But you do still have bodies on the ground, and this is the.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got some pin guys in good order, and and they're 2 628s. I think all the 628s are still there.
Yep.
Oh no, 1 628 is.
No, you got two. You got one down in X10 and one in.
But he's not in the victory.
Oh, not yet.
So there's the one in. Yeah, there's just the one, and there's a 527 in close.
Right,
he's won this close combat. I did start to think, well, maybe I could do it.
Maybe there's a chance. Yeah. So turn 5. So
you don't get your tank back.
That's right. This tank gets a bit kind of crazy. The 150. I get a bit excited about the fact that I might be able to sneak in and forget the line of shot straight down the road. But I'm so annoyed by this heavy machine gun guy.
Yeah. But do you know what? Even an exploded tank will help you cross that road.
Exactly that. So
I don't think I think that's an ahistorical thing. I don't think that they used to go, I'll tell you what, you go down there, get your tank blown up, and we'll run through the smoke. I don't think that happened.
Exactly. The 838s are effectively unfair. They're basically just, I don't understand what, I mean, those guys are brutes.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It just seems like
you got me now, you're running all over me.
Yeah. But it's definitely one of these games where you can easily lose this. There's some plays for the guys. I'm convinced that all you're going to do is hold on to this tank and advance him. And you even talked about advancing him, into the gully potentially.
Yes. So that was actually the plan. I mean, I'm in close combat now, but the idea was that from V9 I was going to go assault move into U9,
right,
and then up into U8 under the bridge and into the building.
Right.
That was my route in. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you won, and then you put your bodies in the way.
That's right. But you've still got got a turn, and you can still advance. So you've got it's tricky because you can't prep fire now in advance for your turn
Exactly.
5, but you've still got an extra turn.
Yeah.
My tank is destroyed as well. My unconfirmed kill
Yeah.
tank.
They both managed to end up with no tanks. Oh no, I've got one still at the moment.
One.
At the moment.
Yeah. So a little bit
Yeah.
of prep fire.
So I can't assault move or anything. I've got to move, haven't I? And
That's right.
you break everything that tries that.
But you do have an extra turn. You've got one last turn here.
Yeah.
The close combat is mutually destroyed. I get a leader that is instantly killed.
Yeah.
So you're left with the Hail Mary shot, really. It's just the tank I've got to destroy. And whether or not these guys come back, I don't think this heavy machine gun can make it in time. I think we work out you can't quite do it.
Yeah.
Bit of prep fire.
And there we go.
And yeah,
Done.
take the tank out. And
Game over. Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of DMs later.
Yeah. It was a good game.
It was. Yeah, this is just. I think these guys technically can run and potentially do it if. But
Right, is that why we're playing on at this point? Because I'm a bit surprised.
I think you had to rally something. I think there was the one chance of a rally.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the game over.
Yeah.
Good scenario, wasn't it? Good scenario. You got no
Really,
luck,
really good. Yeah.
No luck.
Yeah. Yeah, it did feel like that a little bit with the not getting the OBA and then a couple of malfunctions and stuff like that. But
right, and so we talked. We talked afterwards about whether or not we would play with the Plaver rule in future, and you're still not that keen on it. You don't.
No, though it's clever. It's a very, very clever rule because it has a very subtle. You never quite completely lose out, but every time you pull a red card, it's more likely you'll get a red card in the future, isn't it? It's a very, very subtle change to the game, very clever change to the game. Oh yeah, maybe I could be brought around. I just don't like that it's not official.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's all it is. I mean, I suppose if you're playing a friendly game like we often do, and if we wanted to do that, I kind of, to me though, that the randomness of the fact that I'm most likely at least going to be able to bring down one sort of fire for effect, and I don't, is a part of the kind of the randomness and the craziness of the game, which I know some people who hate it, but I quite like it. I mean, when that happens, it probably skews the scenario a little bit pro-German or whatever, but but it doesn't really matter if I lose. Do you know what I mean? So I think that makes each playing a little bit different. It makes it kind of exciting, creates a challenge. How am I going to do it then? Because I'm not going to be able to use my plan. I'm going to have to find another way of holding this off. I think it's fine. I think just go roll with the. I was going to say roll with the blows, but actually you roll with the rolls, don't you? So that expression's it doesn't really work. Yeah.
There is, as we talked before about like great feelings of ASL. The mean great feeling of ASL is when your opponent pulls the second red card. There's that feeling of hopelessness when you made you've made the roll for your OBA, you've got the radio contact, and then there's that feeling of I've got one chance of getting out of this, which is the red card.
Yeah.
And then once you've had that one red card, there's always this chance of it might all be over soon. I might get away with no more of this. I think I think it was a great start. We can look at the vassal templates window here.
That'd be great, yeah.
So looking at this one, basically you can see that I had better rolls all the way through. Effectively, you were rolling about 6.7. I was rolling 7. You were only 7.2. I was on 6.7, and in general, my dice were hotter than yours, and so there's definitely an argument to be made there that I had great dice compared to yours. But I don't know whether this had a bigger effect than the two big instances, which is you losing your tanks and the OBA. I think that was the kind of the crux of it. So there's that to be argued for.
Yeah. I mean, analysis like this is quite interesting, and it's particularly good having that sort of moving average thing there. But of course, a lot of those rolls are for the wind, aren't they? And it doesn't tell you the whole story, but it does give you, I think, some sort of an indication.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you think like every other time you roll a dice, you've got a -1 modifier on it against me through the
Yeah.
game. That's because I think that's statistically quite a large
It's huge.
gap.
Yeah.
Because often you think you're losing because of dice, but
Right,
then you
right,
look
right.
at any kind of a breakdown, and actually you weren't that bad.
Right.
But I think that does show. That's quite interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
very interesting graph.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So then we should wrap up with the IIFT talk. So in the end of that scenario, after comparing every dice roll that we made, now there were some instances where it was a bit difficult because, for example, I was firing just the 838 without the light machine gun, and in theory, if I was on the IIFT, I would have rolled the 11 rather than the 8.
Yeah.
But with that said, we basically looked at every dice roll we made to see, okay, what would the result have been, how would we have done it. And in the entire scenario, and that's a big scenario, it's a good mid-sized scenario. Only one dice roll had a different effect had it been on the IIFT rather than the IFT, and that was the different, like a 1 morale check instead of a morale check, and the result was the same in the end regardless. So, for example, you'd pass on a 4 rather than a 5. So we can officially say, in our one scenario experiment, no change at all between the
it's interesting, isn't it?
We spoke to Indy earlier on, and he said, well, if you don't think it makes a difference, I'll take the IIFT and you take the IFT. And obviously, all bets are off, isn't it? Because it's never going to get worse, I think. But as a comparison, it really does make very, very little difference. And I think that's the kind of takeaway that I would put on this, in that if, for example, at the expense of memorizing charts or whatever, if someone was coming to the game anew and saying, okay, well, what should I do? Very little difference. Go with personal preference. But that's that.
Excellent.
All right. Okay, so let's listen now to Toby's tips on the wire. Martin, you get a special mention. So take it away, Toby.
Okay, today I wanted to talk a bit about wire. And I must admit, I've been struggling with this little section with a piece on wire, because the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, all I'll end up doing is repeating verbatim everything I wrote in the player's manual to AR Self-Defense that I wrote and was published by Lefranc-Tireur. And I thought, well, what can I say that's different? So I'd say to listeners, if you want to buff up on wire, then read the article, buy the manual and read it. So what I'm going to do today is just use an example and to demonstrate some principles, really. And the example I thought I'd use was from Illuminating Rounds number 43, which is when I played Martin at When I Call Roll. And in that, it becomes evident eventually that one of my wires is in, I think it's W10, and hopefully Dave can bring this up visually. And the other one was never found because Martin's men never got far enough forward to discover it. It was actually in A10. Now, the logic there is that the wires were hidden from initial view. So contrast that with the tetrahedrons, which had the effect, as soon as Martin came on board, he can see them and he moved out of the way. Now, you can do that with wire. I could have had wire on the beach there, but it won't cover much. So instead, the idea was to draw him onto one flank and then have the wire come as a surprise to him, which is, of course, what it sort of did. Because once you've committed, then the wire slows him down. Whereas if he'd seen the wire early on, he might go, "Oh, I won't go into those exits." Imagine if instead of the mines in V9 and V10, I'd put the wire there and had the mines in W10 and AA10. Well, what would have happened there is Martin wouldn't have gone into those woods in the first place. So the benefit, obviously, of the mines is their hip, and they'll do their damage, and then suddenly the wire becomes apparent. And my fear was a sort of a board edge creep. So the other wire in AA10 again is to sort of ambush him to a certain extent. If he gets past the T hex row and gets into that wood line on hex row Z, suddenly you'll think, oh, for God's sake, there's more wire. And there it's just to slow him down. I can't even see into AA10. I cannot put fire on it, unlike W10. But it stops him bypassing AA9. And if he's on a tight schedule at that stage of the game, a wire in the right place can just slow that down completely, because you can't CX, of course, either. You can't bypass. So that was the idea there, and a surprise later on in the game has much more of an effect time-wise than it does early on. So that's a couple of thoughts on wire. As I say, if you want the rest of my thoughts, buy the manual.
So very good. Were you surprised, Martin, by that wire that you found?
Well, of course, don't forget that I didn't find the one, did I? I'm really glad that Toby decided to use my slaughtered American attack as an example of this. Yeah, I was completely caught by surprise. Yeah. See, with Toby, it's really bizarre. You always see that you're being channeled in a particular direction, and you know when you're playing somebody of Toby's caliber that it isn't going to be a nice ending. But I fell into all the traps.
Well, okay. It's you and many others. Don't worry. It's not unique. All right. You've also been busy. So thank you, Toby, for that. By the way, that's very much appreciated. And yeah, and again, the ASL defense is always a very good.
It's very, very good.
Yeah. So right. Okay. You've been busy as well, doing your form of helping out people.
Mm-hmm. So that's right. So we've already published Tabletop Talks. I can't remember the number. I must see number 5, which is just going through infantry movement, how you move things, especially when you're portaging and all, just loads of little different examples. But this Friday, and I don't know if that will come out before or after this video, but there's going to be I'm aiming to post every 2 weeks on Friday. So the one coming up now is about how you would move over open ground and the different ways that you can reduce the effectiveness of the fire against you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's very much for new and newer players. I hope some of the old crusties will enjoy it, but it is really aimed at new and newer players. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good. Okay. All right. Other than that, I think we're all good. We're going to say thank you again to our patrons for the support. And if you haven't watched our fireside chats, pop in and leave some comments on the Patreon site. Otherwise, we are looking forward to Blackpool. I just saw that the Martin's magazine's just come out for the Blackpool tournament, so that's something to have a read in the bath tonight. It's the only time I want to be thinking of Martin in the bath. That's my.
And Dave, you're saying you might come for a jog with me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think we should definitely try and keep fit.
I think there's definitely a case to be made for trying to be a little bit fitter, doing slightly more healthy things at tournaments, because days of sitting in a room with everyone eating chips and burgers and beer, it's not good.
That's okay. Yeah. We'll do it. We'll do it.
All right.
We'll aim for a jog a day. I don't know. We're going to try that.
Yeah, why not? Well, at least, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well, we'll probably have too much to drink one night, but apart from that, missing that one, we'll go for it.
It's going to end up to be one jog around the block, and then we're done. Okay, yeah, sounds good. We've got to keep ourselves fit.
Yeah.
Other than that, thank you for the game. I think it was good fun. I will see you in Blackpool, and along with our Desert Island scenarios. Looking forward to hearing about that.
Yes.
And if you want to be on Desert Island scenarios, we'll firm up the format. But essentially,
it's worth saying actually that a couple of people asked if they could do it remotely, and so if there are people who aren't going to Blackpool, it doesn't mean that you can't be involved if that's something that you would like to do.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to talk about 3 scenarios, 3 opponents, and then a board game as well that you would take, and the opponents that you would play with that as well, as a kind of like a half-hour kind of chat maybe.
Yeah.
With people. Yeah, sounds good. All right then. Well, until then, thanks for the game. Acts of Defiance. Thanks to Rob for a great video. Thanks to Toby for some good tips, and to you, Martin, for the game.
You too, Dave.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Cheerio. Bye bye.